Hi everyone, I'm very excited to share my research today. Today's topic discusses storytelling, how it can improve the literacy and communication skills of young children. First, a little bit about myself. My name is Christeen Vadivel and I'm currently studying the Bachelor's of Early Childhood Education. I'm looking to complete my studies this semester and graduate as a teacher soon. Let's get into the contents we're covering today. Research topic and research questions, research methodology, results and findings, discussions, limitations of study, and the last one would be recommendations and conclusion. The topic of my research is the importance of storytelling and how it advances the literacy and communication skills of children within early childhood settings. Let's start with a brief background. According to ESIC, storytelling helps improve not only writing and reading skills, but also children's listening skills. Children tend to learn more when they're engaged and interested in how they're being taught. Storytelling allows children to express their ideas through co-creation and two-way communication with their educators and their peers. Children are naturally inquisitive and like interacting with others, which makes storytelling approach an ideal meaning of helping them improve their speech and language skills. The research questions are inquiry-based. The main question is, how can storytelling be used to help young children develop and advance their literacy and communication skills? Sub-question 1. How do early childhood educators use storytelling to develop literacy and communication skills in children? Sub-question 2. Why is storytelling an important part of learning in early childhood settings? Let's move on to the research methodology section. Ethical considerations are vital in any kind of research. In this research, we have adhered to the code of ethics by providing participants with a consent form, informing them to their right to withdraw from research, maintaining confidentiality and anonymity, ensuring collected data is only accessible to researcher and supervisor, maintaining respect, honesty and objectivity, and ensuring that the questions asked are direct, non-offensive, and non-discriminatory. The data was gathered from one early childhood center using convenient sampling and judgment purposive sampling method. The participants were 8 children aged between 4 to 5 years old, and their 2 primary educators and 2 trainees. The researcher gained written consent from all participants. The information was gathered in a preschool setting, a natural environment within which children could feel safe. In a preschool environment, children are able to develop their skills through collaboration and interaction with their peers who are from different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. I made use of the interpretationism paradigm, and the research reflects a social constructivist philosophy. This approach is also useful since the children actively contributed to the research. The research was conducted in 3 stages over a period of 6 weeks, during which I observed all interactions including the planned storytelling sessions. Stage 1 pre-test took place in week 1. This included distribution of consent forms and pre-test questionnaires as well as reading of book 1. Stage 2 implementation of experience was week 2 to 5. The educators incorporated 2 books every week. Stage 3 post-test took place during week 6. This was a direct comparison by reading same book as in week 1 to the children and distribution of post-test questionnaires. During all these stages, children were encouraged to narrate their own version, say what they thought the story was about, and voice their opinions. The data collection method used were qualitative in nature in order to allow researchers to explore the topic in more detail, provide a deep understanding of the issue being researched, and ensure that the information gathered is richer in meaning and provides deeper insight into how storytelling can be used to advance literacy and communication skills in children. The data of this research was gathered through direct passive observations of the children through questionnaires filled out by the educators. The children chose for these observations were aged between 4 to 5 years old and were picked due to a reflective wider demographic in terms of culture, background, and ethnicity. As shown in the table, the children chosen for this study were from different backgrounds, namely Caucasian, Chinese, European, Vietnam, Korean, Indian, and Filipino. The educator group also consisted of different demographies in terms of cultural backgrounds, educational levels, and employment status. The observation method used combined with the demographic allowed me to properly triangulate the findings. I evaluated the information gathered using narrative data analysis and analyzed the information using different parameters, namely literacy skills, communication skills, use of language, use of vocabulary, and narrative skills. I also considered the educator responses gathered through pre- and post-experimental stage open-ended questionnaires. These were the findings of my research. During stage 1, all the educators had similar responses in regards to the current implementation of storytelling in the classroom, in that it was not a technique that was commonly used within the language part of the learning. Storytelling tended to be more of a spontaneous activity. 3 educators commented that storytelling consists of reading a story loud out to children, while the 4th educator commented storytelling included reading from a book, orally narrating stories, and allowing children to express their ideas through story format. The educators were mostly anonymous in their answers. Their responses in regards to the benefits of storytelling ranged from the promotion of children's spoken and written language, development of their imagination, and extension of vocabulary. During stage 2, the 2 storytelling sessions for each week were conducted in separate groups with 1 primary educator and 1 trainee, during which they each took turns to read out the story to the children. Children were encouraged to narrate back what they have thought was the main point of the story, or to summarize the story, or even to narrate their understanding of the story. In initial weeks, many of the responses included repetition of the same words that children had heard, as well as mispronunciation of some words, and children provided 1 to 2 sentences responses. As the weeks went by, the children started using their own words, asking more questions, trying out pronunciation of difficult words, and using new vocabulary they had learned from previous storytelling sessions. Stage 3 elicited more detailed responses from the educators regarding the range of improvements and developments that children had shown during the 4 weeks implementation part of the research. Besides, improvements in the children's spoken and written languages, development of their imagination, and extension of the vocabulary, the educators mentioned that children's overall use of language had increased, the pronunciation was getting better, their narrative skills had improved, and they were also learning through repetition of questioning. Many children had also developed more confidence, were able to express their idea more openly. The educators commented that they were determined to include storytelling and associated techniques within the weekly curriculum for children. Stage 3 elicited more detailed responses from the educators regarding the range of improvements and developments that children had shown during the 4 weeks implementation part of the research. Besides, improvements in the children's spoken and written languages, development of their imagination, and extension of their vocabulary, the educators mentioned that children's overall use of language had increased. The pronunciation was getting better, their narrative skills had improved, and they were also learning through repetition and questioning. Many children had also developed more confidence and were able to express their ideas more openly. The educators commented that they were also determined to include storytelling and associated techniques within the weekly curriculum for children. This slide will discuss my findings. The results from the research shows that the storytelling methodology is an important aspect of learning, can be used to advance the literacy and communication skills of children within early childhood education settings. Exposing children to storytelling on a regular basis within the center allows them to develop their expressive skills and confidence in a natural setting where they can feel comfortable, encouraged to explore their own voices, which matches with research carried out by Borden and Renfield in 2019. Similarly, the results of the current research echo some of the findings by Morin and Auburn in 2018. In that, storytelling makes learning more meaningful for children by making them more receptive to learning language skills, develop their vocabulary, and expressing their thoughts. This research has helped to bring to the forefront attitudes and receptions concerning storytelling and how it can be effectively used as a technique to enhance learning and communication as well as other qualities such as confidence when integrated properly to the curriculum. However, there are still a few limitations to this research project, namely, Sample size demographics, lack of presentation from certain groups, and limited activities. I limited the number of participants to 2 groups of 4 children and 2 educators, bringing the total number of participants to 12. As such, the small sample size limits the generalizability and validity of this research project, similar to the simulation inquired by the research carried out previously by Orban 2018, Morin 2018, and Morin 2020. The original project proposal was meant to include participants from more than one early childhood education center. This would have increased not only the overall number of participants but also increased the coverage or area and local demographics of the research. This would have also allowed the researcher to make more generalization based on the findings, which would have made by the research findings more valid. Additionally, while the researcher tried to include children from different cultural backgrounds, there were no representation of children from Aboriginal or Torres Strait backgrounds. There are currently no children from these backgrounds attending the center, hence the reason why they were not included in this study. Finally, in terms of storytelling, the research only included book reading, either from a physical book or a digital version of a book, for all the weeks during this, which the experience were implemented. The responses would have been more varied had other activities been included. For future research, it is recommended that the limitations of this research project are addressed. Bigger group, it is hard for one researcher to physically be present at several locations at a time. Hence, the recommendation is for the project to be delivered within the group of at least 5 researchers, so there can be simultaneously be more coverage area for samples of participants, as well as more diverse group of researchers who can make meaning of the responses and then later collaborate finding as a group. On a large scale, the research could be also included with the researchers and from different states, territories in Australia to make it more generalizable project. Inclusion, in order to for many other future projects to be embedded within the Australian early childhood content, it is imperative that children from Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander backgrounds are given equal representation within the sample of the study. Consideration that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people already have a rich culture of storytelling embedded within their traditions means that the participants of children from these backgrounds is doubtably meaningful to this project. Activities. The last recommendation in its regards to the activities to be undertaken as part of this project, although there is a focus on storytelling and literacy, communication skills and improvements therefore can be noted in different ways other than asking the children to narrate back, ask questions or in their vocabulary. The researchers could also test for understanding through other meanings, such as creating storyboards to incorporate digital technology, writing short stories, role-playing and recreating the stories as performance, allowing the children to read out loud, orally narrating original stories, letting children tell stories or encourage them to narrate events from their own adventures or places they have been. There is a whole host of additional activities that can be included in such research so as to continuously encourage children to think beyond what they are seeing and hearing. This research project was able to answer the original research questions it set out to do. The research was able to show how storytelling can be used by early childhood educators to help young children to develop and advance their literacy and communication skills, while also showing why storytelling is an important part of learning for young children. The data gathered by the researcher pointed to define improvements in both the literacy and communication skills of children as the weeks advanced. However, the benefits of this research go beyond the research results, in that the educators at the center were able to clearly see the improvements and changes achieved by the children and have those decided to incorporate more of the storytelling and associated activities within the weekly curriculum. While storytelling was used mainly during the free periods, it has now been incorporated within the language and literacy program for the week. That's the end of my research topic. I have added a small picture here with my two nephews, just to represent a happy moment with them, with children. So thank you very much for your patience and for listening to my presentation. The following slides will be the references list.